Every claim tells a story, and some are stranger than fiction. Welcome to the F-Files. When claims get weird, we get to work.
Hello and happy St. Patrick's Day. If you're listening to this while drinking a green beer at 10 a.m., you're our target audience. I'm Mandi.
And I'm Daphne. Today we're talking about emerald illusions and a pot of gold promises.
Ah, so you've come seeking me pot of gold, have ye?
The leprechaun is the ultimate original scammer, as you know, and if you watch the sci-fi leprechaun movie series, you'll know what I'm talking about. In the old stories, they weren't friendly. They're solitary fairies who made shoes and hoarded gold. If you caught one, he'd promise you his treasure just to get away, but the second you looked away, the gold vanished or turned into dry leaves.
Okay, so it sounds like the old bait and switch trick, or too good to be true.
Exactly.
Well, I think the public's fraud radar is a lot higher than it's ever been, and we're seeing these like institutional cracks happening everywhere lately. People are growing pretty tired of these disappearing acts, so to speak. So, curious, Daphne, if we pivot to healthcare, where you see this pot of gold fraud playing out.
I think a good example of this would be the Theranos scandal. Elizabeth Holmes sold the ultimate emerald illusion, which was a pot of gold that promised up to 200 tests from a single drop of blood. I couldn't even imagine that because I get my blood drawn frequently for for lab tests, and it's not the greatest experience. I would definitely prefer to just give a drop of blood. But then when the curtain was pulled back, the gold was just dry leaves, unfortunately. The tech just didn't back up the too good to be true claims.
No, it did not. And that's actually a perfect lead in for us to talk about our user conference, Healthcare Fraud Shield Elevate, which is happening in Austin next month. So it's going to be April 21st to the 22nd. And our keynote speaker is the man who pulled back the curtain on Theranos, Tyler Schultz.
That's exciting. Let's dive into Tyler Schultz's story a little bit. Tyler was an engineer on the assay validation team, which for non scientists is the team responsible for providing that a lab test measures what it says it measures.
And if the listeners are like me, you guys know the black turtleneck version of Theranos, with Elizabeth Holmes, the founder and CEO, dressing like Steve Jobs, drinking her green juice, and lowering the register of her voice. But the real story with Theranos was in the validation reports Tyler was forced to falsify.
He was looking at the Edison machine, a supposed miracle device, and realized it was basically a robotic arm that occasionally dropped pipettes into its own gears. It was a mechanical disaster disguised as a medical breakthrough.
And to hide that, Theranos was actually running patient samples on modified third party Siemens machines, and they literally hacked traditional lab equipment to make it fit their finger prick narrative. So Tyler worked on the team that had to make the math look real when the science was actually fake.
So, what you're saying is the math wasn't mathing?
Exactly.
When they tested for syphilis, the Edison device had a 43% coefficient of variation, which I didn't understand what that meant, so I had to look up the plain English version. It was a coin flip. When Tyler pointed this out, his managers told him to just delete the outliers until the average looked normal. They called it the repeat and delete protocol.
And that wasn't actually a mistake. It was their business model. And it gets darker than that because Tyler wasn't just some random employee. His grandfather was George Schultz, the former U.S. Secretary of State and a Theranos board member.
Oh my gosh, that's awful. I couldn't imagine being in that position. I couldn't imagine being 22 years old and having to choose between your career, your family, loyalty, and the fact that real people were getting false test results, potentially HIV and cancer, even. Elizabeth Holmes actually weaponized Tyler's own grandfather against him, sending private investigators to follow him and threatening him with a $400,000 legal battle that nearly bankrupted his parents. For a 60 Minutes episode featuring an interview with Tyler, he stated that when he brought his concerns to Elizabeth, he received a demeaning response from Sunny Balwani, the COO of the company. He said, well, Sonny said that he was arrogant, ignorant, patronizing, reckless person who lacked the basic understanding of math, science, and statistics, and that if he had any other last name, he would have already been held accountable to this strongest extent. I don't know about you, Mandy, but to me, that reeks of a highly toxic work environment where secrets and lies are the norm and morals and ethics completely fly out the window. What would you have done in a scenario like that?
It's really hard to say. Like, it's easy to say that you'd be the hero. Well, it's easy for me to say I'd be the hero, but I'm, at age 22, I don't think so. And not against the Secretary of State and a billionaire. I think everyone would need to dig pretty deep for that kind of courage. And so, yeah, I mean, that was not just a toxic workplace. That was psychological warfare. Tyler had to go against everybody, the media, investors, the government, because they were all bought in on that illusion. And he did it like while his family was being leveraged as a weapon against him.
That was incredibly brave. I don't know that I could have done that, honestly. Well, maybe. I guess if I
I
had some liquid courage, probably.
don't Maybe some green beer. I don't know.
Yeah. Honestly, for those of us in the fraud, waste, and abuse field, this is the ultimate fraud case. Most of the time, we're looking for a doctor who's padding their bills or a clinic that's double charging. But with Theranos, their whole business model was deceit.
And that brings us back to why we're excited to hear from Tyler at our user conference. It's not just going to be where we're discussing spreadsheets and data mining. We're going to be hearing about the courage that it takes to speak up and risk your own job. And I mean, in his case, maybe even his life. I mean, when you go up against billionaires and government officials, and he did all of that to protect healthcare consumers. Okay, so speaking of the people who aren't afraid to speak up, um, and people who definitely won't be wearing a black turtleneck in the Texas heat, we have Paula with us, healthcare fraud shield extraordinaire. Welcome to the F Files, Paula. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what your role is?
Yeah. Hey, Mandy. Hey, Daphne. Hey, Becca in the background. So my name is Paula Clemente, and I'm part of the business development team here at Healthcare Fraud Shield. But fun fact, as everyone knows in the SIU team, I was our first intern back in the day. So I remember working with Daphne closely, and she was teaching me the ropes, learning about the HCFS platform. And then after my year as an intern, I started working with the SIU team. So shout out Ken as my first boss outside of college. He and like the SIU team just really molded me to what I am today, just giving me a great foundation. And then from there, now I transition to the business development side of the company. So I'm more focused on helping healthcare fraud show grow and connect with more organizations. So it's just been really cool to see how the company has evolved in the past 3 years. And I'm just excited to be part of it growing and improving.
Paula, you attended our user conference in Nashville last year. Before we get into this year's conference, can you give our listeners some highlights from last year?
Yeah, for sure. Last year, it was actually our first ever user conference in the history of healthcare fraud field. So the first one went off with a bang. And also it was my first time meeting so many people from the company in person. Typically, when I was like working with healthcare fraud field, everyone was within their computer. So it was nice to see an actual face with the name, if that makes sense. And I guess like also highlights, we had an icebreaker where I told everyone to create spaghetti structures. I guess like high level, the user conference, just being able to connect with everyone in one place because we hardly get to do that with our type of profession. So I think that's the best part.
Awesome. So last year was in Nashville. This year is in Austin, Texas. And you are a Texan, so maybe you can tell people a little bit about what to expect from Austin besides the delicious barbecue.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a pseudo Texan, but I would say the weather can be very unpredictable. So it could be either high 80s to 90s slash like extreme like rain. So I would say just beware.
Dress in layers is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Well, this year's conference sounds like it's going to be so fun and an amazing learning opportunity. Can you give us some highlights for the year to help our listeners know what to expect?
Yeah, for sure. So when users go to our conference, they're able to get a lot of CEUs. So people could get 7 AFI, 3 AAPC CEUs, and 2 CFE CEUs. So makes it very valuable for the professionals trying to stay up to their CEU accounts. I know for me, last year I was like trying to find all the CEUs for my AAPC CPC requirement. So this is a great way to pat your stats for the upcoming year. And then, oh yes, we actually have a networking event. It's just another way for our attendees to connect with other people in the industry and just have some fun and not talk shop, just be like regular people, you know? And also that Monday evening, we actually have a sponsored event to kick things off. So it's going to be a reception before the actual user conference starts. And I guess lastly, we're going to have a lot of speakers within our user conference. So they'll be sharing current trends, challenges, and best practices. So high level, this conference is just about learning, networking, and having fun with like our work friends.
And Paula, how much does it cost to attend this for all those beautiful CEUs that we can add to our data?
Great question, Daphne. The actual conference is free, but users just need to find their ticket to Austin and just accommodation. So I would say not a
That's
bad
awesome.
Yeah,
No way.
that's
Use
great.
that vacation time if you have to and get paid to go.
Yeah. Or also, Daphne, I know a lot of plans say they use our user conference as their company retreat. So that's another thing to tie in, like, oh, this could be like a good as a team building exercise.
Oh, that's a great idea. I would have never thought of that.
And so, there'll be everybody from like SIU directors to investigators to government entities there. Um, I'm an introvert, so when I go to these things, I don't really take advantage of the networking so much. But I'm wondering, like, how will Healthcare Fraud Shield Elevate actually help people like me connect with others in the industry?
No, great question, Mandy. If you were going, I would just bother you and like talk your ear off. But since you asked the question, I would say during the planning process, we were being very intentional on where people are sitting. So I believe on the tables, we're going to have a little like place cards where we could like talk and like ask each other questions. So that could help with the awkwardness. But I know in our team, we're very talkative. So I think even if there's some downtime, you'll be able to connect with someone. And also, it just helps you out, you know, and just make new friends, or that's how I see it. So push yourself,
That's
Mandy, or
awesome.
people who are listening.
No,
That's
it sounds like
awesome.
you kind of have it structured in a way where it's going to feel really natural, and that's a good thing. I think that's the thing that introverts struggle with is just the forced interaction that sometimes you don't really feel like it's organic. But in this case, like the way that you're kind of seating people, it's kind of it's a little more comfortable. So
Yeah, and also we also like put in time where people need breaks.
sounds like you guys were very thoughtful when you were organizing this.
Yeah, I love how thoughtful that is, Paula, because a lot of people probably assume that I'm pretty outgoing based on the way that I talk on this podcast. But in all honesty, I'm an introverted extrovert, and there's limitations to how long I can be with people before my battery completely drains, and I just need to like get away for a few minutes. So that's super exciting that you guys thought of everybody. All right. So we are going to be releasing this podcast episode on St. Patty's Day. So Paula, I have to ask, if Healthcare Fraud Shield platform was a drink, what would it be?
I would say Healthcare Fraud Shield the company and platform, I would say it's like a fishbowl in the best way. If you guys know, or like if you could recollect with your college days, just like that fishbowl cocktail. So basically, it's a mix of a lot of different ingredients that work really well together. There are a lot of different pieces in the platform and a lot of different people behind it. And we have really positive and collaborative culture. So, and those different perspectives are a part of keeping these things very evolving and getting better. And there's a lot of ingredients, meaning there's a lot of like modules in their software, and it gets the job done. If you know what I'm saying, it's just always good. It's great because when people see and like play within the system, they're like, oh my gosh, you could do this. I didn't know you could find a code within the code analysis tab, And I think hearing that from people in real time, it's like, oh man, like this is something that helps people in their day-to-day life, and that makes me happy. And I think fishbowls make people happy too, So healthcare fraud is like the fishbowl of fraud detection.
I think that was a really perfect metaphor, Paula. Like it's a lot of ingredients. It mixes together really well. You don't really know what's in there. All you care about is that it tastes good.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, to close out, I wanted to just do a little bit of trivia. So we're talking about Tyler Schultz, the ultimate whistleblower, and according to the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, whistleblowers are responsible for uncovering nearly 43% of all fraud cases. But here's a kicker. The odds of uncovering significant fraud without one are statistically abysmal. Did you know that, Daphne?
I did not. I get so wrapped up in looking for potential fraud in data that I hadn't actually taken the time to think about what elements a whistleblower could actually bring to the investigative theory.
Yeah, so I mean, basically what that comes down to is, for 57% of cases, you know, the pot of gold, so to speak, is only getting found by people like our listeners, like people who do what we do, where we're sifting through the spreadsheets until our eyes bleed and looking for those like repeat and delete patterns that everybody else, is missing. So I think, it's just a reminder that our work is really, really important.
Mandy, we do a lot of heavy lifting, much like Paula, who, by the way, is a heavy lifter.
Oh,
Paula, what's your
LOL.
personal record?
Oh gosh. Bench is 120 pounds, squat is 250 pounds, and deadlift is 290 as of now.
Nice. Nice. So if you guys go to HCFSElevate and see Paula, she is like this tiny little petite thing. So those are some big weights to be clearing.
I'm a very little lady with curly hair and red glasses, so I'm very easy to spot. Like I'm 5'1", I'm so tiny.
tiny but strong.
That's
Tiny
right.
but mighty. There
Tiny
you
but
go.
mighty.
Tiny but mighty.
Okay, so to wrap up, join our team in Austin April 21st and 22nd. Don't rely on luck to catch fraud, waste, and abuse. Hear Tyler Schultz tell the story that nearly destroyed his family and connect with the people who are actually trying to keep the system honest. You can register up until the event. Just reach out to info@hcfraudshield.com. And we hope to see, well, Mandy and I don't hope to because we won't be there, but Paula hopes to see you there.
Enjoy. Sláinte, everyone. Everything that has been discussed in this podcast is based on our day-to-day experiences.
Any opinions stated by myself, Mandy, or any guests during the podcast are not necessarily representative of the opinions or views of Healthcare Fraud Shield.